First up, we have a discussion of the LaPorte Road reconstruction. Jamie?
Jamie Knudsen, City Engineer. I have AECOM here tonight to give you a presentation on LaPorte Road and what we're looking at for the design between Shawless and on the south and Hawthorne on the north. And if you have comments, questions, please let us know. Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to working on this project with you. Hopefully you guys can hear me pretty well. So today we're going to talk about the corridor and kind of where we started as far as the existing conditions, the proposed improvements, the traffic study that we completed, funding, and then the project schedule. Oh, sorry, I would also like to let you know that you can interrupt at any time to ask questions because it makes it a lot easier than trying to flip back and get back to where we were. So definitely do not hesitate to ask questions as we go. So for those of you that don't know, the project limits go from about the 218 slip ramp that's on the north end all the way down to Shawless, where the future roundabout is as part of the Shawless and LaPorte roundabout. It's previously called Hess. So that is going to be the south limits, and it's going to go underneath Highway 20 along the mall and San Martin. The existing roadway is actually a minor arterial and a collector. So the minor arterial is actually from San Martin south, and the collector is going to the north. And just so you guys that haven't had much experience with traffic, the minor arterial is actually the heavier, more frequent roadway, and the collector is the lower volume. The typical cross-section we're going to review is basically the urban setting that we have on the north end and the rural on the south, and how we're going to convert it. We've got 3 existing signals and a hawk signal at the existing fire station. We've got no pedestrian accommodations currently or bicycle accommodations, and we have a frontage road from Cornwall to Byron. We've got here you can see some pedestrians and our best bicyclists along the corridor, and then you also see the rural section that's out by the KOA. We also have the San Martin intersection, and you also can see the utilities that we have along this corridor. You can see a number of telephone poles. We have a pedestrian here in the upper right-hand corner. And so some of the other additional corridor considerations is the drainage. We have a major drainage crossing at the Crossroads Creek, and there's actually a pretty good flood way that goes through there. We have utilities. We've got Mid-America, Waterloo Water Works, sanitary sewer, fiber, electric, all that stuff. So, and then the other thing we have to consider when we're reconstructing is the environmental. So here you can see the existing floodway, which is in the lower left picture. And the floodway is actually the black hatched area. And the blue line is kind of hard to see, but that's actually the floodway boundary for the 100-year. On the other side, you can see the environmental wetlands in that same general area as the channel. And then there's some additional wetlands on the south side of 20, and then at the outlet of the Bamboo Lake. So that's kind of the existing corridor. Are there any questions about the existing conditions? All right. So the project goals, this is kind of what spurs kind of how we develop the project. So I don't necessarily read all of them, but basically we're definitely going to make some improvements to the efficiency of the roadway, provide accommodations for businesses, pedestrians, transit users, make general enhancements to the corridor as well as part of this project. So here we have a typical cross-section. This is actually what we're proposing to do from Shawless at the roundabout all the way up to Grimm Street. And Grimm is the, it goes San Martin, Bop, and Grimm for those. And so that's the kind of the south end of where the mall is. It's going to be primarily a 2-lane corridor. We are going to have left turn lanes at any of the identified intersections, such as like the Lost Island entrance for their staff. We're going to have a turn lane for the KOA and a number of other identified areas. Here you can see the 3-lane section, and that's going to be in 2 different sections. So it's actually going to be from Grimm up to Bop, and then skipping over the Bop to Ridgeway section, and then it goes to Ridgeway to Highway 218 slip ramp. So that's what we're proposing in those 2 sections. And you can see it's got a 2-way left center turn lane. Oh, and then the other thing I should have mentioned, sorry, is we are going to have a recreational trail along the west side of the road, and that's going to run the entire stretch from Shawless all the way up to the 218 slip ramp. So there is going to be a brand new recreational trail that'll tie into that Shawless trail, and we're making plans for tying it into like the downtown trail system as well to make that connection for an overall plan. However, the full connection into downtown won't necessarily be part of this project, but we're trying to identify potential opportunities to make that connection in the future.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
One of the questions that I had is looking at this, you're talking about from Ridgeway South. Now that Ridgeway North, is that what you're talking about as far as tying into downtown Waterloo eventually?
So the recreational trail is kind of what I was talking about with the tie-in to downtown. And so we are going to put the recreational trail in all the way up to the slip ramp at 218, but that connection to the 218 recreational trail, which also ties into downtown, we don't have a clear connection quite yet for that.
Well, I guess my question is the roadway itself, when you go from Ridgeway and head north, that area there where I believe it's Cadillac and all those businesses are, those roads are terrible in that area. Is that part of the project also? Yeah,
so we're going to redo all of the intersections, yes, as part of that project, yes. Yep. So, yeah, the whole roadway will eventually be reconstructed. So that's kind of, this is the groundwork for all of that.
All right, thank you.
So, and then you can see the 5-lane typical cross section. This is the highest volumed area, and this is from Bop to Ridgeway. So that includes that San Martin intersection. So this is the 5-lane section. So as part of this project, there will be some right-of-way impacts due to the improvements with recreational trails, sidewalks, things like that. We are trying to minimize them as much as possible. We do know that that impacts businesses and such. You can see here that these are not all of the properties, but these are probably the major, I shouldn't say major, because we are trying to minimize them, and most of them are basically just strip takings. You can kind of see the yellow highlight, and then the blue coloring. The blue would be more right-of-way, and then the yellow is more of a temporary easement. So we are trying to minimize our impacts as much as possible, but you can see here some of these impacts, some of these improvements do impact properties.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain what we're looking at? I can't read.
Oh, sorry.
I can't read this. And
yep.
I don't have it on my screen.
Sorry. Can you guys see the mouse?
I just can't see what streets you're talking about here,
so,
and what businesses we're looking at.
Okay, so the one on the lower left, that's Dick Witham. So the LaPorte Road is on the left side of the picture because they're on the east side of the road. And so the yellow strip is just a temporary impact to them in order to construct the roadway. The one in the middle is the CVS property. And you can see that's the recreational trail. So the roadway is actually on the right side of the building. And then the lower right picture is McDonald's, and so then the road is on the left side of McDonald's, and that's actually right-of-way needed for the sidewalk that will be constructed there. Sorry, it's hard to get all the pictures in there, but these are just some of the examples of some of the right-of-way that we would, so. And as we proceed into final design, we will look at ways to minimize that, whether it's reducing the offset from sidewalk to back of curb, etc. However, when we try to establish this preliminary design, we do try to maximize safety and keeping that distance a safe distance. And then it also provides snow storage when plowing roads and stuff. So, and it doesn't all end up on the sidewalk.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Are we able to get a copy of this emailed to us?
Yes, I absolutely can. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we have, in addition to right-of-way impacts, we also try to identify and improve access management and our control. So we try to make safety improvements. So the intersection in the middle of this picture is actually Mitchell, and there's a number of intersections here that are very close. And in order to improve safety, we have identified these as potential closures. Obviously, we will have to work with these property owners prior to closing them, and that would be something that we would negotiate with them and work through with them. In addition, you can kind of see in this area, we are eliminating the frontage road. So as part of that, it's kind of a redundancy to have that frontage road right along LaPorte. And so in removing that, it reduces the cost to reconstruct. It also reduces maintenance. So, and then it will identify and create access points along there versus the drop curb that's currently there. Sorry, if there's any questions, ask. But then the enhancements. So this is kind of the fun part. This is the bicycle trails, pedestrian improvements, the sidewalks, the transit accommodations, landscaping, and then the other discussion we're having is the overhead to underground conversion. Here you can see some of the enhancements. We have very similar enhancements to University Avenue. We've got an intersection marker with some ornamental trees planted, proposed. Here you see a gateway feature. This is actually proposed on San Martin as you approach the corridor, and it's as you get off of 218. And here is a good picture of how the overhead to underground conversion really improves this area. So I don't know how well you can tell, and I don't know if they can zoom in on TV, but the existing picture is off to, yep, right there. And that really shows how the existing corridor looks really cluttered with all the overhead lines. And then the other picture really shows how, even though there's been no other changes, how much better the corridor looks and the improvements that it makes.
One of the things I just wanted to point out, the enhancements here may not be as much as what we've seen on University Avenue, but doing this is a huge enhancement to the businesses along there. So keep that in mind. You may not see the big physical infrastructure like we did on University, but something like this, I think, has a much bigger impact than trees or other things that we could be doing. So this would be considered part of the enhancements of the corridor.
Mr. Mayor. So Michelle and Jamie, then we already know, or you're talking with Mid-American about doing all of this, and it won't be, it's not going to, what's our cost
so
when we're doing all of that then?
So there are potential costs with this, but that is something that we're going to negotiate with Mid-America. They've thrown out some estimates, but through the negotiation process and the amount of impacts that we have in the corridor, so there's going to be impacts that they would have to do no matter what. So if we have a recreational trail that conflicts with these poles, which they do, they would have to relocate those poles at their cost no matter what. And so we would use that as part of our negotiations, so that way the city wouldn't take the full brunt of the relocation to underground. And so those are costs they're going to have no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something we're in the process of talking to them about. Okay. We just don't have a hard number yet.
Okay, thank you.
So, and we have talked with the stakeholders along the corridor, and the stakeholders have all been very supportive of how much this will improve the corridor. And there will potentially be some impacts to the businesses along the corridor that have overhead power and would have to convert their power to underground. So that's a potential as well. But as you can see, there's a huge drastic improvement to this corridor with that. You can see here the enhancements. I might kind of go fast. I got a little bit of time, but I want to make sure I keep my schedule. But you can see here we're doing some street trees throughout the corridor. We're also going to be doing similar median improvements where anytime we have less than 7 feet for mowers, we will have the colored concrete in order to keep safety in those medians. You can see here we've got some ornamental trees at the intersection of Highway 20. We also will be doing some underdeck improvements for lighting. That's also come out of the stakeholder meetings, as they want to make sure that that's not kind of a dark area. You can see here continued street trees. There's some screening along the backside of the property. Again, you can start to see where we're going to start doing the overhead to underground conversion. So you can see here the red line is actually the overhead to underground conversion. So it's going to start here on the south end, and as we progress forward, you can see it on the north end. At the intersection of San Martin, we're going to do enhanced crosswalks similar to University Avenue, and this is also where those gateway features are along San Martin as you get off of 218 or go on to 218. Again, you can see the trails and overhead to underground enhancements. And then again, we will have another intersection marker at the intersection of Mitchell, getting off of that 218 corridor. And here you can see the slip ramp. Any questions about enhancements as of yet? Okay. The fun part, traffic engineering. Crash studies. So we've actually have about 133 crashes in a 5-year period. The majority of the crashes happen at Mitchell and San Martin. Those two intersections are above the statewide average and are considered intersections that would benefit from safety improvements. So we have, as part of our traffic study, we did study 19 intersections, and all of them, with the exception of San Martin, had high level of service, and that's what LOS is, level of service. And San Martin had a level of service D. So for those of you, level of service, we typically target C as kind of our good forecasting. So we project our traffic volumes out, and C is kind of what we target. Level of service D is considered acceptable in peak periods for a higher volume, similar to like a San Martin Avenue. However, we do like to target a C because that is a safer design. So we've got our future traffic conditions were for 2045. So when you hear me talk about 2045, it's because we've forecasted that traffic growth. And then when we analyze, and I should say that we do include a factor. When we did our traffic study, it was shortly after COVID started to open back up. However, we did an analysis to notice that we were still low compared to pre-COVID and after COVID. So that was upped due to that. And then we also included the traffic impact study data for the theme park. And so then we analyzed the no-build situation, which is basically if we would build it back the way it is today, keeping the frontage road, keeping San Martin the same way, keeping the same lane configurations. And then we have the build, which is the improvements we are presenting today. So here you can see the existing. So this is the way it is today. If you would go out there and peak traffic today, it would take you, your arterial speeds would be anywhere from 11 to 24, depending on AM and PM and which direction you're going. So for the no build, we actually would have a lower arterial speed. You're actually going to drop those down with those future projected traffic volumes, and you'll have an arterial speed of 9 to 15, depending on your AM and PM and directional traffic. So this actually increases delays and decreases arterial speeds compared to the way it is today. So then we have our build analysis, and that's what we're proposing to move forward with as part of our corridor study. And here you can see that we reduce delays and we increase the arterial speed. So the arterial speeds that you would experience driving north or south, AM or PM, are going to be roughly 24 to 26 miles per hour. And so then we take those and we analyze the operation of the intersection. So this first one is for the no build. This is if we build it out to the same exact way and kept the same lane configurations with the forecasted travel. So green is good. That's basically everything from level of service C and up. The yellow and orange are bad. So that's where you are experiencing delays and issues with that intersection. And these intersections correspond, I know they're hard to see and I will send them out, but basically it's saying the intersections of San Martin and Mitchell and things like that are not operating well. Here in the forecasted, and you'll notice that some of the bubbles disappeared. And the reason is that the intersections that disappeared are actually the intersections removed as part of the frontage road removal. So you can see here in the future build proposed, you can see that everything is level of service C and above. So you can see here, some zoomed in. So here's the San Martin. You can see today is existing. There's PM peaks of level service D. Same thing with the no build, but the future build is C or above. I'll kind of go through these bridgeways, basically unchanged from the way it is today. It operates very well. And then Mitchell actually drops down a little bit for the build, and that's partly because we're removing that frontage road. And so it takes the frontage road traffic off and puts it on that. But as you can see it still meets that level service C and above. So as part of our traffic study, everybody wants to know about whether or not the intersection control evaluation. And so as part of this, we evaluate stop controlled intersections and seeing if they are adequate or if they need traffic signals and or roundabouts. The way it is today, everything operates really well with the existing 3 traffic signals. And then we did evaluate roundabouts at 4 of the intersections. So the intersections of San Martin and Mitchell, which are the ones that are safety issues, have too much traffic and or are too close to 218 to be able to risk backing up into 218 traffic. So those were not considered as potential roundabout opportunities. However, with the 4 here, all operate at level service A. However, they do introduce delays where there aren't previously delays on LaPorte Road. So if we were to select Plymouth as a roundabout, it would actually slow down your mainline LaPorte Road traffic. Ridgeway, however, would not because of the fact that it already has a traffic signal and already has delays. So that only applies to intersections without traffic signals. Here we do propose an alternate with a roundabout at the slip ramp. The benefits of here are the fact that it slows down the 218 traffic. I don't know about you, but there may be several people that come flying off of 218, I'm sure at 45 mile per hour, but may not slow down to the 35 mile per hour. And so that roundabout will help force those drivers to transition to that slower speed and help with the rear-ending crashes that we do see along that area. Because what happens is people will come flying off, somebody in front of them will stop to turn and get rear-ended. So that'll help to lower that volume or speed. It also helps prevent the wrong way movement. It forces that turn off onto Byron and a number of other benefits. Any questions on the design? All right. Funding, 31.3 million is kind of the estimated construction costs. Currently, we have 8.03 million in statewide SWAP funding through the MPO. We are submitting an additional application here in April. We've got TAP funding currently, and that is for a recreational trail from Shawless up to the KOA entrance. We've got other opportunities such as the infrastructure bill funding and a RAISE grant application for this year that we may be looking at for additional opportunities. Project schedule. So going forth from today, we are looking at having stakeholder meetings again with the businesses along the corridor, a public information meeting in March, and phase 1 is scheduled to be designed this summer and fall, and constructions beginning as early as this fall and next summer. And then phase 2 would be designed or completed design in 2024 with construction possibly beginning in 2024 and finishing in 2025. And sorry, and you can see the limits here. I should have said them, but phase 1's limits will go from Shawless, the roundabout that's being constructed as part of the Shawless Road project, to about 900 feet north of Highway 20, which, if you're familiar with it, is just south of the driveway for the substation there. And then it'll go from that point for phase 2 up to Grimm. And that's, oh, if you want additional information about the project, we have, we will be posting this presentation up to the website and to the Facebook page. So those are opportunities. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I will get this out to you guys.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. And once that construction of the roundabout at Shawless S. LaPorte takes place, and then the section going north, how do we maintain access to Water Park, Maintenance Drive, and KOA, because once that roundabout goes in, that's going to be a nightmare for people with big motor homes and pulling trailers behind their big motor homes to navigate a detour that's gonna send them all the way around Crossroads to come back the other direction.
So we will actually stage this in order to maintain the KOA half at a time. So we will, in periods where we're constructing the part from the driveway here to south to the roundabout, that north leg of that roundabout is going to be closed. So that will restrict that traffic. There's not a way, like on University, we maintain head-to-head traffic. With only 2 lanes of traffic, you don't have much room for opportunity to maintain traffic. So it will force that KOA traffic to go north when the south half is being constructed, and then south when the...
I'm more than confused in what you're saying right now.
Sorry. So basically, once you send traffic north when you're constructing the part south. I don't know.
Yeah, the roundabout you're saying.
So you'll close the roundabout, the north leg of it. You won't close the roundabout. Traffic will be maintained on Shawless, but the north leg of the roundabout will be closed.
Right. So, yep. so they'll have to go all the way down to Hammond.
Yep,
and
come
then
back.
Come all the way around Crossroads to come back.
Yep, or go out to
218.
218 and then come back.
But generally, they come off at 218 and work their way back there. That's why I was wondering. I mean, because I live out there and I see that traffic all the time. But so then, how do we maintain to keep the water park maintenance drive where they have hundreds of employees that are parked there open? If we're going to the KOA and stopping and then going past that.
So you want to?
No, it's something we'll have to talk with the Birches about.
Okay.
Yep.
And it may be a case where we'll have to make a temporary connection between their paved parking lot and across the creek over to their employee parking lot. But those are things that we have to talk about yet with them.
Okay.
They do have an internal connection to their internal parking lot that their visitors use over to their staff. Mm-hmm. There is a drainage crossing that connects.
There is a drainage crossing that they use their maintenance vehicles,
Yep.
their lawnmowers to go across.
Yep.
And do you know when we're going to officially change the name to LaPorte Road, because it still
already
has
done. Still
the signage isn't done.
Well, that I would ask Randy about that, but that's something that they know about and they'll be working on.
Because I was out there KOA last Thursday, and they were still under the assumption that it was Hess.
No, I have sent.
I know they've changed their addresses and their vendors and that, but they were still under the assumption that it was Hess Road.
No, I've notified all the folks that are along Hess Road, or formerly Hess Road, of all that information, as well as traffic operations. It's just a matter of them getting out there to change the signs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So this is a major corridor in my ward, and I'm really thankful for all the work that you do. This question is actually for Noel. Noel, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of LaPorte Road is in one of the opportunity zones that we have. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I was just wondering if you have, and if not, that's perfectly fine, a conversation about its impact. I know we're trying to draw investment into that area about how this project will impact that. And if you've had that conversation, what are some of your thoughts? If not, then you don't have anything to add.
We're definitely sharing the marketing materials, I guess, of this for the Opportunity Zone prospectus, as well as it's part of our grant writing for the RAISE grant and all that this is an Opportunity Zone to try to get additional points there as well. But we are looking at the connection. We have been getting a lot of questions about the corridor, and an Opportunity Zone is a very interesting thing for a lot of developers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the work you guys are doing towards this. This is a huge one for the city, for that corridor, for retail, for a lot for our commercials. So thank you for all your efforts.